you've covered a lot, a lot of ground. I don't know. I mean, if you pick up from complexity theory onwards,
Okay.
you might sort of be able to get pretty much to the end of your talk without repeating.
Okay. All right. So.
But is what the market and the market and capitalism, is it all about making us happy? I was never under the impression that it was just about, but that was.
Well, I think the market is about incrementally people doing transactions to make them more happy.
I'm trying to make collectively. You know?
Collectively, that's a bit more murky. The promise of economic theory is that we selfishly pursue our own best interests and everyone benefits. That's one promise, but I wonder if it's more it's a political prescription rather than something that you can really prove in the way people claim that they can prove.
Happier when they're helping other people.
All right. Complexity theory, evolution, and so on. Okay.
Angela has a question.
Can I ask something about the...
Looking at you.
Yes, okay, so in this fine magazine, The Open Society from New Zealand, we have another person from the 0.01 percenter called Nick Hanower, who is actually talking about inequality. And I mean, at the end of this, I do have a question for both of you. But he is... there are studies to show that when things were more equal, that people were relatively happier. I mean, in the 1950s and the 1960s before things went crazy.
There was sexism, there was domestic violence, there were a few nasty things from that.
I was born in 1937, I can tell you it's not bloody true.
And also, abuse in Catholic Church, child abuse and pedophilia and so on. But anyway, please continue.
But people were relatively happier because inequality wasn't
so
so glaring. And he says, during the past 3 decades, compensation for CEOs grew 127 times faster than it did for workers. Since 1950, the CEO to worker pay ratio has increased 1,000%. CEOs used to earn 30 times the median wage, now they rake in 500 times, etc., etc. What I wanted to ask, I mean, there is more of this. There's actually a really good quote at the end.
Maybe you should give a talk at you that.
Well, do you two think that money is a limited resource, and the more that the rich leech out of society, the less there is for the rest of us and for the homeless, the pensioners, the unemployed.
All right. Well, I will try to answer that.
The disabled.
James can say his own thing now. Now, first off, there's what's called the money illusion. Now, this is actually a mainstream concept, and I do actually embrace it. I always say it's not the money; it's the stuff that's happening, and the money is sort of like some one-step thing removed from the actual things people are doing, things people are consuming, things people are making. And money is one step removed from that. So, in a sense, you can have a bucket load of money and a certain amount of things happening, and all you have is inflation because the money doesn't match the things happening. So that's sort of the money illusion. So that's one way you can look at money. But I think engaging with what you're saying in a different way, I think it is quite possible that the wealthy will develop more wealth because they have more wealth from which to charge interest on. Right?
Yes.
So there's going to be this escalating runaway effect. And that's one more general sentiment. Now, as far as CEOs,
we've got to have a working population to get that wealth from.
In a perverse sort of way, this is sort of like Gresham's law applied to the stock market. Because if there were enough firms, what you would do is say, we are a second-tier firm. We're not going to buy the most expensive chief executive officer we can, but we're going to buy someone who's cheaper, who's got it in them. Right? And then the stock market relates to this and says, aha, they're basically getting better value for money for their CEOs, so we better invest in them. Right? Now that's not happening. Basically you have this sort of, whether it's called the race to the bottom or the race to the top, where there's a weird sort of competition going on that all the firms want the best CEO. So therefore it just jacks up the prices of the CEOs, and you've got this bizarre whether you want to call it a virtuous circle or a vicious circle, but basically those nasty things are going on. And notice, there's a lot of things in market economics where you say, if there was an ideal market, if we all were properly aware of the products we purchase and say, we want a good quality product, then there wouldn't be products with planned obsolescence. Or if we were saying, we want to look at our firm that we're investing in a share market and say, we don't want them to overpay their CEO, because if they don't overpay their CEO, then that's more money to pay the workers with, make them happy, or more money to give us as dividends. So you don't have degrees of competition that would actually fix certain problems up. I mean, okay, I suppose this is, I hope this is not, I hope the women here won't get freaked out by what I say here, but you know, there's the idea that women are paid less than men in the corporate world. So I imagine myself to be like in Charlie's Angels, that I have this firm full of women and I pay them halfway between what women normally make and what men would make. I pocket the difference, but I still have an effective firm, right? So basically I pay fill it with women, pay them more than they normally pay, but I'm still more profitable than a similar firm full of men doing the same task. But why isn't that happening? It's I don't know. But anyway, I think I'll stop there.
But the market does depend on the workforce, you know, to buy products.
I think at CEO level, women are paid as much as men.
Well, maybe.
My grandson is coming. So
Yes, no, I opened up again, but that
Can I ask,
All right.
guy's gone now.
can I ask a little question?
Well, I think it was James. We
Oh, you
say something.
stopped. You stopped, have you?
I've stopped, yes. But I think Angela did invite James to say something.
Oh,
so.
sorry, James. Excuse me.
So this question is, what about the 1% and inequality, the runaway inequality,
Yes.
and what, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, or?
Oh, well, it's undoubtedly an evil. But
Not if
my
you wanted the
question-
1%. Then it's a great thing.
Well, here's one of the 1% who's saying that on reflection, it actually is an extremely bad thing.
Yeah, as I say,
However, my question was, do you think that money is a limited resource?
Oh, limited.
And that with the very rich leaching so much out of the economy,
Oh dear.
that it leaves less for the homeless, the disabled, the
Not-
inadvertently unemployed.
Yeah, it's an
etc.
interesting question. I mean, not necessarily, because money is effectively like a permission slip. So it's a piece of paper, a permission slip to buy something, but unless you use it, it's just a piece of paper.
Exactly.
And so nominally, there are some people that are extremely wealthy, you know, billions of dollars, but it's all paper. It's all theoretical value.
Yes.
These people spend a very small proportion of their nominal money. You know, they can only drive one car, they can only live in one house, so they actually spend a very small proportion of their nominal sort of money. So there's still a lot of stuff on sale for the ordinary people, you know, shoes, loaves of bread, things like that. And it's only where the 1% can crowd out the normal economy that you actually get that sort of damage occurring. Maybe in property, you know, if they buy a number of houses and knock them down to build a tennis court, then okay, you've got that spill over there. But if they go off and instead spend, you know, $100 million for a painting, there's no real sort of bad effect onto the real economy from that. So you have to actually sort of trace back and see where the actual bad sort of effect is occurring.
Okay, well look, I won't talk very much, but I do want to close off this stuff about chaos economics. So now one question is how much competition there really is. Now one view is that competition is reduced by firms that try to set up barriers to entry and become entrenched. And that's actually a view from, I guess, complexity and evolutionary principles. Now, of course, normally there's really no alternative. Rather than get a taxi, you can walk. Rather than turning up the heater, you can rug up. Now, it's not pleasant, but the price of power was high enough, you'd give up and just rug up. So a distant second best option keeps firms somewhat honest, I should say. But the price of power could be set at just below the point at which you give up, so they maximise the frustration because they can get away with it. But with good competition, though, firms would keep each other a lot more honest. However, if firms may deliver benefit because they're good at what they're doing. So they can basically run it, on the one hand, is a lower profit margin than new entrants would run. So you actually have some benefit because given firms are entrenched and are good at what they do, but you don't have the same benefit as if there are a whole bunch of firms competing that had the same level of competence. So you have this benefit that's in between the benefit of firms knowing what they're doing being diluted by the fact that they're also oligopolies or relative monopolies, right? But that's entrenchment. Now, that's evolutionary, an evolutionary thing that does fit in with the notion of complexity theory. Now, one of the things that is actually built into some of this this whole perspective I've talked about, I guess the free market perspective, is the government, rather the market will go out there and come up with the optimum solution, the best solution. Right, now you can't know what that is in advance, which is why you can't have a planned economy. You have to let the economy work it out itself. Now, but one of the things is that there's so-called butterfly economics, which means that there are random factors that determine whether or not something dominates in the market, which are quite separate to its absolute utility if you can actually demonstrate that. Now, remember VHS versus beta. Now, a lot of the engineers all said that beta was a better system, but for reasons of randomness, it was VHS that actually managed to dominate the market. And once it dominated the market, beta got squeezed out. Now, whether a film is successful depends on whether the first people who see it, what they tell each other, and when they say, oh, go and see that film. And there's a certain randomness over whether a film becomes a blockbuster. And, I mean, obviously this is a matter of judgment. I mean, how good is a film really? But, you know, people can make a reasonably impartial judgment of these films and say, look, this film is just as good as that one, but that one became a blockbuster through luck, and that one just fizzled. So there's this random input into economic development. And the thing is, that actually undermines the promise of the market that the market will come up with the best solution, because it's not actually running in a mysterious but deterministic way. It's actually flipping a coin at various steps along the analysis. So that's undermining the idea that we leave the economy and the economy will sort it out and come up with the best option. No, it may not always come up with the best option. Sometimes it will select randomly between possibilities. So then the other thing you also have in evolutionary economics is coevolution. That basically there will be a new technology. One firm will start up using that new technology and a whole other lot of firms will spring up feeding the firms at the forward end. And you can actually see how here's one firm and all these firms that spring up around it. And that's the better metaphor there is to actually talk about coevolution in ecosystems. And you actually draw more from biology to explain what's going on here. While normal economics just talks about technology being this exogenous thing that we just say just falls from the sky like rain, and you can't really engage with it in any more detail. But evolutionary economics gives you a richer picture of that. So I guess we're at the 5:45. I haven't covered everything that I wanted to, but it's nice to have covered what I have done. So.
Thank you.